I've not really spoken about it before, but when I was 40, I decided to go through IVF to become a mum. And I chose to do that on my own. It definitely wasn't an easy process, but obviously now I have a beautiful 2-year-old, Betsy. And I just thought it'd be something that I could share with people who have been thinking of it themselves, who are scared to talk or be open about it. And I just thought I'd get ready and you could come with me on this little chat. Just before I was turned 40, I started researching my options. I was pretty in the dark about it, to be honest. I kind of knew that if I was wanting to have a child on my own, that fertility treatment was my only, obviously, option. But I did also kind of look into fostering and adoption as well, because I really wanted to explore everything. Growing up, I always thought that I'd have my own family one day. And spending most of my 20s and 30s focusing on my career and travelling and moving about, I was never really very settled, but I always kind of really went out there and made the most of life. So I started researching things like NHS IVF, and it was just overwhelming, and I didn't really know anyone who'd been through it, and I was a bit embarrassed to talk about it. It's really only my close family who I spoke to found a clinic called Care Fertility in Manchester. And just one day I rang up and booked an appointment, and it was just an initial appointment to explore options, to have some tests and to really understand what was going on in my body, because I never really knew if I'd be able to have children because I never tried before. The appointment time came and I drove down to Manchester with my lovely mum and went into the clinic, and it was so welcoming and lovely, and they had a little coffee machine which made me very happy. And I had some tests done. The results came back that I had quite a low egg count, and the doctor rang me to talk me through what they'd found, what they'd seen, and just kind of make it understandable, like what, I'm gonna have to look in the mirror for these unruly brows that need doing. Talked me through IUI, I think that's what it's called, and IVF. So the first steps to go through this process would be to find a sperm donor, which was the most weirdest thing I ever had to shop for because I had to go online and like look through profiles, and it was a very strange experience, if I must say. The doctor was really lovely, really assuring of this being a viable option for me, but also quite honest about my egg count being low and something to do with my hormone levels. He said that, you know, time's not on your side, so I wouldn't suggest waiting too long. So I kind of, some people would take that quite negatively, but I saw that as a push to just go for it. It was like almost somebody helped me make the decision that I was really struggling to know how to make myself. But yeah, it's just a time of my life that I felt so confused about, but also so sure. It was very, very, very strange to sort of make a decision that you wanted to have a baby on your own and be the sole person to decide that, and be the sole person to be responsible for the outcome. October, November 2022, so still 39. I phoned up Manchester Care Clinic and asked them to send me all the forms, and I sat and read them and signed my life away. And basically I went for the IVF 2-round package, which gave me 2 rounds of IVF. So obviously if the first one didn't work, I had that second round already paid for, and it just made more sense financially. So the next step, I needed to find a sperm donor. The advice of the clinic, again, they were so helpful with every route and every part of the process. was to go on the sperm bank website. So the one I went with was called the European Sperm Bank. And one thing I had to think of when picking a sperm donor was the ethnicity, eye colour, the hair colour. There was quite a few like credentials, and you could go on and use like a filter. Not going into loads of detail, but a sperm donor is anonymous, so I'll never know the person's name. However, I was told that legally in the UK, I don't know about other countries, but at 18 the child is allowed to find out who their biological parent is. And I have watched a few Davina McCall programmes and knew that as well. So that's an interesting one, but I won't worry about that for another 16 years. So, oh dear. Doesn't have to be perfect, does it? And the reason I chose the donor I chose was they have, as well as a list of like the hair colour, eye colour, what's their favourite type of music, film, food. They tell them a bit about themselves, like they like travelling and they like going to concerts and they like reading and they like yoga and things like that. But some of them I clicked on and they had a voice note. So this was getting quite personal. Obviously, I'll never know who he is. I'm going to colour all my lips in. I always do this when I want it to stick longer. Well, the lady in Sephora told me this. And I believe anything that people in Sephora say. I listened to the voice note. And it was just really lovely. He came across really well, really polite. So once I'd paid for my sperm donor and was transferred from the sperm bank to the clinic who stored that for me, and that was all ready to go when I was ready to go. So I decided to put a date on when I wanted to start the process, and I decided to do it around my 40th birthday. And also that I had to think of when I could be pregnant, if I was to get pregnant, in terms of like my commitments to my work. I would try and not take bookings just in case I got pregnant. I'd try and think, if I got pregnant I wouldn't be able to do that wedding, and it was so stressful. And one big thing that they say to you when you start IVF is just eliminate as much stress as you can in your life. So I had to really battle that. And the process started for me in January 2023. I was given some tablets to take. I believe they were to slow or stop my period. And then they could start with the process of growing the eggs and the follicles, to produce the eggs. Again, my science is crap, but I understand what I need to understand. Okay, onto the hair, and I'll talk about the IVF process. I set my hair last night, and I recently re-dyed it. So it felt really nice this last couple of days. When you freshly dye your hair, it's always really lovely and shiny and soft. So I put some setting lotion in it last night. Got the little roly curlers out. Roly curlers, you know what I mean. Pillow curlers, there's lots of names for them. Something to think about when you're going through the process of starting IVF. You don't get medication on the NHS, so you don't pay like a £9.90 or whatever it is. You are talking a lot of money for your medication for IVF. So I'm not trying to put anyone off, I'm just being real with this, because I never realised any of this. I just knew it'd be expensive to do IVF privately, but I never knew about all the medication and all the multiple trips to Manchester I had to take, and some of them I had to stay overnight. But I never need an excuse to go to Manchester. I love it, and I've got my brother and my lovely friend there. Use my new brush from Lucille Locks that I've been dying to try out. She's a lovely business. She just had a lovely little girl. Congratulations if you see this. She's gorgeous. Medication is like injected into your stomach. I think you can inject it into your thigh, but I went stomach. I'm sure there was a reason why. But I could not face it. So my mum, bless her, used to come round every day and do it for me. A friend of mine who's a nurse also offered. So that's the one thing with doing this on your own is like, I had to be brave to make the decision, but to go through it on my own, it's really important to know that you've got people around you, because the things like trying to inject myself and just like the moods, the low mood and the worry, and I suffer from anxiety. I have done for probably since childhood, and I just found it at times like I felt quite low, and I was always worried that it wasn't going to work and doubting everything. So just kind of being open with friends and family about what I was going through, just so they could check in on me, because I'm not very good at telling people when I'm not doing great. I just keep it all in. So this was a big thing for me to overcome, to telling people that I was doing it, which I kept to quite a small few, but the ones I did tell were the ones I trust and the ones I knew that would support me and just be there for me if I needed them. That's gonna have to do for now. I'll fanny around with it a bit later. I'll just give it a quick spray. You might wonder where little Betsy is. She's usually popping over and interrupting my videos, but she's at nursery, so I've had a lovely lazy morning watching some Netflix, and I've just had a bath. And it was when I was in the bath I decided I'm going to get out of the bath and I'm going to do this video, because I've had it in my head for so long that I wanted to do it. So top tip to get a bigger quiff is just to put a setting flip there, then spray it. I'm going to leave this now for a little bit longer until I have to go and pick Betsy up, and I will take it out then. I had my month's worth of medication and injections, and then it came to the point where I would go for scans at the clinic to check my follicles and my egg growth, and when they felt I was ready, they then did something called an egg collection, and I was put under anaesthetic, so I was asleep when it happened, and I had to not drive, so I stayed in Manchester overnight for that. And luckily they collected 6 eggs. Now 6 eggs is great, but it's not, some people collect a lot more than that, so I always had the expectation that there wouldn't be loads of eggs, but I was so grateful that there was more than none. So 6 was amazing. And then what happens then is the embryologist fertilise the egg with the sperm donation that they've got in storage, and those 6 eggs then turned into 3 embryos, and over the 5 days I could see on the app, which was so amazing, the stages of the embryo becoming stronger and stronger. When it got to grade A, the embryo was ready to transfer, and that takes from the egg collection to the day of transfer around 5 days. So I was always on kind of red alert to go and drive down to Manchester, and in the middle of all this I still had a little bit of work, and I was trying my best to keep stress free, and it was hard, but you just got to think of the bigger picture. And then the day came of the egg transfer. Again, my mum was with me all the way. She was wonderful, and I then had the appointment of the of the embryo transfer, and I was wide awake when that happened, and there was like a tiny little monitor, and it shows you, they were like, right, okay, good luck. And I had to do something called the 2-week wait, which some of you might have heard of before, and that's when I was told to wait until I could take my pregnancy test. And after 2 weeks I took my pregnancy test, and it was positive, and I was pregnant, and I just couldn't believe it. It took me so long to come to terms with it being real. Sometimes I just didn't think it was real, and I was quite the worrier until, you know, the first proper scan. And with the fertility clinic, they did that at 7 weeks. So after the first pregnancy test at 2 weeks, I waited and hoped everything was okay in there, and touching my belly as I say that. And then on the 7th week I had a scan, and they showed me the tiny little baby growing inside me, and it was just wonderful. And I cried a lot. My mum cried a lot, and we were just so grateful, and the team were just so lovely and caring, and they were so excited to see that I was pregnant, because that's, you know, all they want for people, and it's their job to get people pregnant. So if you're just, you know, thinking that you want to become a mum and you just don't think it's ever going to happen, just explore the options. I'm really glad I was brave enough to, and I am always happy to chat about my journey and to give you any support. I've had a few people reach out to me over the last few years, and I've happily sat down and talked to them or chatted online. And one of my really good friends has gone through exactly the same process with her partner to have IVF, and they've just become pregnant and announced that recently, and that just made me so emotional and happy and delighted for them. It's a hard process, and it's scary, and it takes a toll on your mental health, but just, you know, I think the regular sort of pregnancies, the natural way, can be hard too, but it's worth it if it's what you want, and if it's what you've always wanted to be a mum, then you can make it happen yourself. That's what I did.